Welcome to another episode of the High Tech Podcast. This is one of your hosts, William Illingworth, joined by my co-host, Joshua Swartz, and Ted and Roy. We just, brought some friends along for this evening.
I love seeing those candles every time. It's a great time.
Part of me wants to light the candles and just let them sit here with us and create some warmth, but part of me can't light them. I can't emotionally.
If you ran out of those candles, that would be a sad day. That would not be good. I do feel like we need to get you more of them because I feel like it should cover your entire windowsill. You know what I mean?
I would love to have the team. If there was the team of them, or I need at least Beard. I have to have Beard and Rebecca. Yeah. It's gotta be Rebecca and Keeley.
The team.
Yeah. So
you need the whole team.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Once I start one,
this is now my new mission. I'm going to be looking out for any more of these Ted Lasso candles and see if we can
anywhere you go
build you the team. Listeners, if you're listening and you know where to get Ted Lasso Catholic candles, just let me know.
Slide into the inbox at hightechpod.us.
Just let us know what the email. Side note: what are the candles actually called? Do they have a real name? There's there's a real name, right?
Votives.
Is that what they are?
Is it a votive?
They're not. They're obviously not just called Catholic candles. That feels like a.
No, I would really prefer it if that was their name. Yes. A votive offering or votive deposit, one or more objects displayed or deposited within the intention of recovery or use in a sacred place for religious purposes. So votives do not have to be candles, maybe, but I think it's very common to go into a Catholic church and that is you purchase a votive candle.
Okay.
I don't know.
If you're listening to the podcast and you're Catholic, if you could also let us know. Will and I should know this given our college background, but
we're not Catholic.
Well, we're not, but it should have come up somewhere. You know what I mean? I feel like all the money I paid for degrees that I have, I should know what those candles are called. That's all I'm saying. I feel like
amazing.
I feel like I should know those things.
I know exactly what they're called. Roy and Ted. Or the other way around.
Sorry. It's fine. Anyway, welcome to the High Tech Podcast, people. This is
it's another week. Episode
another day
100.
in paradise, as some people say on the podcast.
I feel savaged. I didn't even get a chance to say it myself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I go to hang out with some friends last Friday afternoon, and I show up, and I promise you, I swear, Scouts honor or something, do whatever I got to do.
Yeah,
I walk in, and zero of them. I walk in and one of the guys is wearing a t-shirt that on the back says "Another Day in Paradise."
Oh, really?
Well, there we go. I need this shirt.
Yeah, you do, because you apparently say it a lot. I think it's funny how you've acknowledged you say it a lot, and then you just started saying it more. You know what I mean? Well, it's just feels like a
bit's a bit,
thing.
right?
A bit is a bit, I guess. That's why for an entire year we asked people to give us pictures of animals. That was it was a bit.
And in fact, if you're listening today, Robin, you should give us a picture of a squirrel with a pie. There we go. Yeah, a squirrel.
Can I tweak it a little bit? Can I tweak it a little bit?
Do it.
I would like a picture of a squirrel in front of multiple Catholic candles. That's what I.
Just hanging out with, and the candles should all be Ted Lasso characters. There we go.
Yeah, that's very specific.
Full circle.
It's going to be totally everybody will deliver. I feel it. The fans will come through. It'll be great. Yeah.
To do that, you should go follow us on all of our socials, and you can tweet us there or ping us in those spaces. Instagram, X, YouTube, etc. at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. Throw it into the email inbox, right? Inbox at hightechpod.us. Anybody, anytime can email us there. We love those emails, especially if they were sponsorship opportunities. Just saying. We'd love a sponsor. And otherwise,
sponsored
head over to
by
our website.
Catholic Candles.
Otherwise, head over to our website, hightechpod.us, where every single one of our episodes is listed. Our affiliates, both Notion and something else. Are there? Reflection app. Yes, wonderful.
Wow.
Reflection. Yep. Reflection app and affiliate.
Did you hear that, Reflection app? They forgot. Will forgot you.
It's been a day.
It's fine. He obviously didn't reflect.
Yeah. But if I had done that, then this might have gone off without a hitch. Alas, it did not. So yeah, that's all the usual stuff. Join us on the High Tech Pod on all the social spaces. Follow, like, share, retweet. If you know somebody who should come on the podcast, send us their contact information. We'll reach out to them. I don't care. Like, this can go any way you want it to.
If you really want to do this, don't tell them you told us that they want to be on the podcast, and we'll randomly reach out to them. That would be fun.
Slide in.
Yeah, just give us a list of people that you want us to stealth bring into the podcast.
Could you imagine we just have like a bunch of people like, hey, come here real quick. We need.
You know what would be a really here idea for a podcast? Okay, just throwing this out there. Somebody take this from me. Okay, it's like pranked or punked, but it's you think you're joining a Zoom meeting, and it's actually a podcast. Come on, that's a great idea.
That would be fun, especially in one sense if, like, honestly, like, seriously, this is the real idea. If, like, the two of us kind of, like, nobodies could host it, but then always have a celebrity on, right? Yeah. Like, so somebody shows up at the meeting like, hey, thanks for joining us today. They're like, who are you? What's going on? Well, we really wanted you to sit down and talk with our friend Brad Pitt. And Brad turns on his camera and suddenly is talking with all of us. Like, that would be also hilarious, because then not only is it this random Zoom meeting turned into a podcast, but then they're just starstruck by some of the most famous people in the world. I don't know why I went to there, but that's just, this is brainstorming, right? Brainstorming. Come up with ideas.
Pause. I got a freeze, and then it gave me that video stalled message. Is my video still uploading properly?
Yes, I don't have any. I can't tell what's happening. I can't take this today. I actually usually look at the recording thing on the right hand side to check for this shit, and I didn't have that one up. I had the wrong one up. Yes, we have one take, and we're currently in our second take.
Okay. So we're fine. Everything's uploading?
We may not be fine.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know when it cut and what happened when it cut, if it cut.
Well, it told me my video stalled. So last time that happened, it was you who were told your video was stalled. So worst comes to worst, it just cut out me not talking. Because you were talking the entire time. So as long as we're still recording now, that's fine. I don't have any concerns now.
It is currently recording.
I didn't talk that entire time. It stalled. Like, you were talking the entire time. So we should, in theory, be fine.
All right.
So I'll just get creative if not. I'll just come back in like I was listening. Your idea was essentially celebrities as a part of our Zoom meeting podcast.
Yes.
Okay. Resume. See, I like the idea of like a celebrity zooming. I just really want somebody to like come into something thinking they're going to be in a Zoom meeting, and they're immediately taken aback by podcast hosts. You know what I mean? Like, that feels like the most 2025 thing that could happen. You know?
Well, everybody's got a podcast, so
exactly.
It's like you just end up on one by accident. Now, of course, there are people who'd be like, "Oh, I don't consent to this," and then the joke's up. But like, if they actually stayed on and had the conversation with you,
like, here's what you do. Okay, here's how we make this work, and then we'll go into our actual podcast. Okay?
Gift cards.
Well, that, but also you don't tell them they're on a podcast until they've agreed to the recording button on Zoom.
This idea does not get better.
I mean, they've signed off to being recorded. You know?
Yeah, they gave permission.
They gave permission. We can have it in very fine print, because you can add messages to that. Very fine print. You're on a podcast. You know what I mean? Like, just like...
Well, that also means now we have to go back to recording in Zoom, which does not sound fun.
Well, for this podcast, there's ideas. Fair. It's fine. And it'll just be called Zoomed. Brought to you by Zoom.
Without the E, ZOOMD.
Yes.
Zoomed.
Yep. Zoomed.
Right? Just like...
You've been Zoomed. Okay, we can
workshop it.
We'll workshop the name. We'll workshop the name. It's fine. There's something to this. Anyway, oh gosh.
This week?
Yes, this week on the podcast.
Episode 199.
We're so close.
We've got there's got a big question, so close to like syncing up. Yeah, well, you know,
yeah. Well, I meant so close to 200, but it's fine.
Oh, well, there's that too.
Dude,
next week is episode 200. That's nuts. I know we've already crashed 200. That doesn't matter. This is going to be number 200.
Unofficially,
which is fantastic.
Crashed 200. You know? Anyway,
I can't wait. Until then, we will be sentimental and wax poetic next week. This episode starts with one big question, and I love it because it kind of does a little bit of rhyming. It's not really of like great rhyme, but it's an easy question to get us started. And Josh has kind of the most background on where this one comes from, but I'll ask the question. Does AI generate or create, right? Is it something that can, and is there a difference? That's part of the philosophical question that we're going to dive into today. When we think about all the content that AI is possible of making right now, we kind of wonder, like, is it art? Or is it just media? Is it generating something, or is it creating something brand new? We kind of know the answer to this, but I think there's more to it than just the basics. Now, this conversation did come up at your symposium. Is that right? Is that where this? It came up
in a round table. I actually don't really remember which round table it was. Now that I look at my notes, I remember it was a round table. I was at a lot of different AI related things.
Not a square table. Got it.
Yes, it was round. And King Arthur was not there, but he should have been. That would have been sick. Okay. Anyway, but no. So it came up at a round table, right? Where like we're talking about, and really what came up was this idea of, so I've been at AI symposiums. I have now led AI sessions at the institution I work at several times. And it's funny, every time we have these types of conversations in academics, especially, I think, people like get uncomfortable with AI doing different things. Like I'm always kind of, I don't know why, surprised at some of the lines that people draw versus don't draw, right? So I've had everybody from saying I grade all of my students' assignments with AI. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know how I feel about that. To like people who get very uncomfortable, like where Will and I were talking about like reference letters being written by AI and things like that, right? So there was some of this like debate going on, right? But what came up at a recent roundtable was basically this idea that is what's created by AI not in some way created by humans, right? Like there's I think I've narrowed down to what people feel most uncomfortable about, which is that there's this idea that like AI is creating something. So like if you're not creating it, then you're being false about what you're creating, or
Sure.
we're not okay with AI doing certain things because a human should be doing those things, or we want human interaction, right? And at the end of the day, it comes down to, I think a lot of people, whether we talk about generation versus creation, which we'll talk about that in a second, it really comes down to this idea that some people see stuff that AI creates as being created by a robot, and others see it as being created by already existing things. Right, and so there's less of what's happening. I don't know. Does that line up with what you're seeing, Will? Obviously, you're talking about AI a lot at work and a lot in environment. Like, have you seen that similar conversation come up?
Well, yes, and so much so, not even just in work and like in conversational stuff, but like it's becoming a part of the environments or the systems we use, right? So if I create an Instagram post, I have to tag whether or not AI was involved in the content. If I come up with if we post our episodes to YouTube and Spotify, there's little flags saying like, is there AI generated content in this or stuff like that. Like this is something that's not only happening in the conversation about AI, but it's like being checked for in content and in media creation everywhere we're going, which I think it's important. I think it's a useful thing to do, and it's also, I hope altruistically people are seeing that check and going, oh yeah, no, I created this content. Or, you know what I mean? They're taking that moment and be like, this is not AI generated content, or I'm not going to lie about it, or anything to that effect. But when it comes down to the person to person's conversations I'm having on this subject, like if if someone's big about AI right now, they're just running with it. Like, very, very seldom am I getting the chance to have these conversations. This conversation you and I are having, or that we talk about when we're doing episode prep or stuff, or making this episode itself. Like, most folks, if they're using AI, they are just like, dude, so how are we going to use it better? What systems are we going to use it with? What's it possible of doing for us? It's not necessarily like addressing this issue of whether or not it's the right things to be doing with it, or it's are we creating content with it, or any more of the philosophical or technical questions on this. It's usually like, what can we automate? How can we reduce cost? That's the big question that gets focused on right now in my circles.
Yeah, you just explained the giant difference between academics and corporate. How can we use that? And academics is like, well, let's talk about it for 18 years, and figure out. No. A practical example of this, right? I come from a religious institution background, right? And so like there was this, for some this is going to connect, for some others it doesn't, but just kind of bear with me here for a second, right?
That's a good example.
Conversation came up, right? Like, would we be okay if an AI generated like a prayer? Okay, and so I have some coming at this argument from like, well, no, like an immediate reaction is, well, no, like those of us who follow the faith, myself who's a Christian, like who takes it very seriously, like there's a reaction of kind of like, well, no, that's something like a human is supposed to be doing in response to God, that type of thing, right? But then somebody brings up the valid question, well, like, do you feel the same way about that when somebody would like either create a prayer based on other written prayers that people did, or read written prayers that other people did? Like, this is a thing, if you didn't grow up in the church, that we do. And so like those people, it's funny
many
because
denominations have entire prayer books.
Yes,
like it's a book of prayers, right?
And it's funny because the people who are like most against AI being involved in this process are the ones who like are totally cool using prayers from these books, right? So like it's a perfectly good example, right? And so like the argument back is always, well, that was the book, the prayer in the book was written by a human. And it is essential, and this is what encompassed this part of the conversation for me, which is like, well, okay, like, is what's generated or created by AI, we'll get to that again in a second, I promise we will come back to it, is what's created or generated by AI, is it not made by a human, right? Because like those of us who know how AI works knows there's no like, Arnold Schwarzenegger is not sitting there coming up with stuff on his own before he destroys John Connor, right? Okay, deep AI reference to Terminator. So like, okay,
he's programmed to do that.
What's happening is there's an algorithm looking at all of the information on the internet, and if they're generating a prayer or generating writing or whatever they are, at the end of the day, it's generating based off of the prompt and based off of the information it has access to, right? And so like one could argue that what was created or generated by the AI is, at the end of the day, in some way, a creation of a human. Because AI was both created by a human and is not making any of this up for the first time. It's based off of all human-created content on the internet. Right? Yeah. Like, so... Now, I know that's oversimplifying it, but, like, this is where it's starting to get for me, is, like, is that the reason we're struggling with this right now? Because some of us still look at this like a robot... What is AI created or generated content? Like, at the end of the day, what is that? You know, like we haven't been able to define it.
And this is, the prayer is a really good thing. I think if folks, you know, if a listener does wrestle with the religious nature of that, it's like, you could just say a poem. Even poetry is something people really wrestle with. Like, yes, technically AI can write you a poem. You can tell it to do specific rhyme schemes or iambic pentameter or whatever, right? Like, it's going to functionally be able to do that. Is it art? Is it good poetry? Is it like, there's all those questions in there. But what's easier to look at this question of create, generate, this relationship of creating and generating with text is like, oh, it's text. We can, like you just said, we can remember that it might come back from something that was previously written by another person. What I think is harder to discern is images and videos, right? We can, even images and videos from AI are coming from source material, but like, if you used some of William Shakespeare's many hundreds of words he created in a poem, I would still know that word was written very first by William Shakespeare. Like it's famous in the English language. He coined so many words, right? So if AI chose one of his words, I'd know that's not AI's words. I know it's William Shakespeare's word. And you could probably find other things like less distinct than that, or discreet than that, like more obscure. Like, if a poem used the phrase "I had a dream," excuse me, if an AI used the phrase "I had a dream" in a poem or in a prayer, it's very likely someone's going to think of Martin Luther King Jr. when that's written, right? Yeah. Humans associate that phrase with MLK Jr. They do not associate that phrase with other people or other things. So there's certain things in written language we're going to go back to. In art, if I tell AI to generate for me a specific image and it uses a certain color style, and it's like, I mean, expert artists will be able to tell that, but like I couldn't tell you if it used Van Gogh or Monet or like more popular today is people using to create illustrations and stuff. I don't know famous illustrators. I can name, classical painters, but I can't name for you those styles and like illustration and stuff. So I could not tell you if AI generated or created. I could not tell you with images if it's making something that's never ever been seen before, if it's actually novel. Like I couldn't discern that for you. With text, I might be able to, and I think it's easier to see it. But this is, I think, it's a tough example to look at imagery and videos, because it's like, technically, with images and videos, what you end up looking at has never existed before.
Well,
that total final product never existed before.
This is the debatable thing, right? And at the end of the day, I do want to highlight something. We kind of skipped over our outline because we just got to start getting into this topic because we were excited. I want to define what we keep coming back to this idea as a generate or create. Okay,
yes. 20 minutes in, let's do it.
Let's do it. 20 minutes in, we're doing great. Okay, so the world is has already made this decision, right? So like Gen AI, you'll hear generative language models, you'll hear ChatGPT, the G in there is around generative, right? The world has decided at large right now that what we're getting from AI is generative, and I do think that's a fair thing to say, because even to your comment, Will, the imagery, I would argue it's not creating something new. Like even generative images, if you know enough about imagery, it's generating based on certain pre-existing models of images, right? Like, or it's just very generic imagery based on what's on the internet, which I love. The group Corridor Crew that I listen to a lot, they've come to term at this, which they call it AI slop, which is this idea of just like this, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's like a giant robot head in front of lights and colors in the background, like it's based off of imagery online, right? So the argument that a lot of people will make in definition is that AI doesn't create, it generates, meaning it generates based on already existing content of some sort or fashion, right? So I do agree that AI generates. Where it gets complicated philosophically, right? Let's get really philosophical for a second, is if it generates something with elements of something else, is that not creation? Like you know what I mean? Like human beings, we don't just make something brand. Now we're getting a little theological on me for a second. But we don't just make something from nothing. We don't even
do it.
Right? Like we generate ideas, things, art, and sometimes it's new, sometimes it's really different, and creative, and those inspiring new ideas are usually take off because it's it is in some form or fashion kind of another level of generation from us where we call it creation, right? But
be careful, I might go even deeper.
Are you going to we keep going? Let's get theological, philosophical here for a second, right? Like, what do we create as human beings? I would argue yes, but there is this dynamic where it's.
I agree with you. I think we actually create less than we think. I think that the idea of syncretism, right? Syncretism is enmeshing multiple cultures, multiple ideas into one, and you might have a whole new belief or belief system as a result of the enmeshment of, or the syncretizing of other disparate thoughts, right? So if we think of how I come up with a sentence, how I come up with a poem, even that, when a human is writing that, so I might have created a poem that no one's ever read before, but it is in and of itself a syncretism of disparate thoughts. And actually, This goes even further into mimetic philosophy of like what is the very essence of an idea, and how do ideas get created and how do ideas get transferred. I think both of them are overlap in the sense that like mimetic, not theology, but philosophy says that if something is memorable, if it is concrete, it is going to be easy to, and it's going to be shared to other places. But one thing about all point of communication is the way you communicate it and receive it. So this one meme, not just GIFs and things like that in modern meme sense, but like one mimetic thought, I might communicate it one way and it's going to be received another way. And so now we already have a difference in like, I might have thought I was creating one thought, but you might receive a different thought. And now we have two thoughts. So even in that moment, we haven't even created one thing. This is just humans. Wrestling with communicating an idea. And we may have created something novel, but it's so muddy by the time you've heard my idea. It's so muddy. Could you even say that what I just thought I created is novel? Like we are begging some ontological questions here.
Yeah, because like, and this is, so you might be convincing me the other way now for a second of being okay with why people are uncomfortable with this, right? Like here's the thing. Like we do create as human beings, but is this why invention and inspiration is something that's so chaste and respected? Because to your point, we actually create less than we think we do, right? Or at least like, and it also is like, what's the definition of creation, right? Is the definition of creation making something that's never been made before? That's not the definition of creation. So this is unfair. But if that's not the definition of creation, then how is what AI does just generating? You know what I mean? Because like,
So an example from this last week, a colleague took a picture of an avatar. This is going to be
great.
One big old Russian nesting doll. Okay, so he takes a screenshot of an avatar.
Got it.
And he takes that screenshot. So the avatar is already an AI generation, right? It is a picture of a real human. The avatars with Synthesia specifically. Have all used human subjects to create their avatars. Anyways, takes a screenshot of the avatar, puts it into, I think, Gemini, right? Okay. Gemini's video generation platform. I forget what it's called.
Right. Yep.
And then has it create B-roll using the avatar, right? So now, at one time, a human was recorded. That human became this avatar image. That avatar image was now taken and put into an AI generation platform to create new content of that avatar. That human, so now I have B-roll of this avatar walking down a hallway talking to someone. That human from the original has never done that. That human has never done that. But we now have a video of this avatar walking down a hallway talking to someone.
Yeah.
It's never happened in real life. And yet this AI has created something that did not exist.
Yeah.
Right? We've used something that did exist. So there is generation. It is relying on the recording of the avatar of whomever. Yeah. But
that's the messy thing, right? Like, it's like, it is relying on something else. Like, AI doesn't just create stuff without relying on something else. The thing that's messy in this process is, like, I think we as humans think we do that more often than we actually do. That we're, like, creating something without relying on something else. And so I think we're splitting. Here's the, and this is weird. We have not had this on the podcast, I think, yet. Where we've had a discussion that has actually converted me the opposite of way I was originally coming into the conversation, right? Like,
we change Josh's mind.
I think, right, that we're splitting hairs about generation and creation because it makes us feel more comfortable with what AI is doing. Right?
Ooh.
Like, is that fair to say? We are splitting hairs in ways we don't do with humanity. Because we feel more comfortable with it. Now, I'm going to come back to the other side in a second, which is like we're splitting hairs in that area, but also I think we're putting unfair standards on AI stuff that we don't put on other things created or generated by other humans.
If I go make you a smoothie, did I create the smoothie or generate the smoothie?
Yeah.
Like, I had to use a recipe. I had to use real materials. I had to, like the smoothie never existed before, so I've created it. But the whole recipe and the experience and the process of creating the smoothie is standard, and so anyone can generate a smoothie. It's like I think we are splitting the hairs. Here's a way though that I think we could make a parallel or an analogy to process this. Right, humans cannot fly. Humans cannot fly. We are not possible.
Yeah.
We cannot possibly do that.
Debatable.
We witnessed.
I'm just joking.
I love you.
What is flying?
We witnessed
really?
creatures fly. Well, birds aren't real, so clearly flying.
Yeah, obviously real. They're just drones by the big man upstairs.
They just don't exist.
Yeah, they don't exist. Clearly.
We saw birds, we saw creatures fly, and so we thought, could we fly? So we create flying machines. But what the Wright brothers and other historical figures did with flying in the early days is not the flying that we have even today. And if we continue to think about flying today, flying today is not the same as space travel, intergalactic travel, where we take a rocket ship out of the atmosphere, which isn't real either, clearly. I mean, we didn't do that. What are you talking about? Green screens. Guys, the moon.
Guys, come on.
It's made of cheese.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is one of those things where we didn't create flying. And we cannot generate the ability to fly. We've created vehicles and tools and methods to replicate that experience, and we may continue. I mean, it's very possible with the rapid growth of technology, supercomputers. Who knows what's possible in the future if we don't create teleportation and stuff like that? I don't know. But it's like that was not possible for the majority of humanity. And then something changed. The technology introduced something that made that possible. Is AI the plane? Is AI flying? Right? We could always write stuff down. We could always paint. We could always do the things that AI can output. That's kind of the point I'm sneaking up to, right? What AI can output, we could always do that. But now that AI can do it for us and faster and more efficiently and more rapidly, is AI doing something that we were not able to do? That's I think maybe the difference to be found in create and generate. If it's doing something we're not capable of doing, is it not creating something we can't do?
Well, I wouldn't say it's creating things we can't do, right? I mean, there's plenty of things I don't know. We're getting like into the weeds of the create generate definition, right? And at the other end too, there is something in AI, at least right now, that is missing, right? A lot of people will talk about on image creation and things like that. Well, it can create lots of cool stuff. There's
like natural fingers.
Yeah, well, yes, but like it's gotten better at that. But like there is this dynamic where like Midjourney, I love Midjourney, but like you can tell, like basically half blind whether or not Midjourney made an image or not. There's like this weird kind of like artistic style to Midjourney.
Yep.
That's not on par with with an artist who has who's inspired, has intentional thought, right? There's like, we're gonna get into this in the next episode, but there was this thing on YouTube recently about the inspiration tab that they added into AI YouTube, where YouTube's basically like you click on it and it will tell you what videos you should create. It gives you like an outline and thumbnails. And some YouTubers kind of like busted on this and created this video of like, is this real inspiration, right? And there was this dynamic where like AI is just kind of producing whatever's most popular in the algorithm. But like, that's not creativity. And maybe that's the problem with the create generate. Like, is AI being creative? Well, it's not really. It's kind of just being like, it's being that guy who kind of just looks at the Twitter posts and just keeps basing it off what the rest of the population really likes. You know what I mean? I don't.
But a word you've brought into this conversation, I think, is actually critical, is inspiration. It is a word we know from theology, right? It is critical to kind of a theological understanding of humanity, a designer and designed, right? Inspiration is a critical word there. but outside of theology as well, in art and society, philosophy, inspiration is something folks look to say what is the genesis of creativity, of thought, right? So someone might stand at an easel for hours and not do one thing, and they put one brushstroke on the page and they go, that's the moment. They have inspiration, and suddenly the painting just flows out of them. Inspiration, they're inspired. Something starts from whatever little seed and grows to something big. You just kind of pointed out that AI is doing a statistical analysis, a grand statistical analysis, but it's evaluating millions, billions, trillions of words, and on a frequency basis to determine something that might be effective or relevant. It's saying relevant, right? Because if this is happening a lot, then let's do more of it. That's the statistical assumption.
Well, it's trying to be relevant and efficient to whatever the prompt is. No, anything that's happening AI-wise, whether it's back end of YouTube inspiration or what you're doing on ChatGPT. At the end of the day, there is a textual or voice, whatever prompt that it's trying to most efficiently and effectively meet, right? Like that, at the end of the day, that's what AI is trying to do, no matter what you're trying to get out of it.
Can I as a human be inspired to create something without a prompt? Am I not an AI agent responding to a prompt? Are not my thoughts and my ability to form words or bring colors together in art contexts my contained LLM generating a response to an external stimulus?
See, now you're getting like deep because okay.
Am I not an AI bot? I'm a bot. This is a Matrix.
This is the first time High Tech Podcast is going to get really theological, probably. And those who come from different backgrounds or whatever, this is my background. Yep. Yes, I believe I'm right, but live with it. So right, like this is, but like there is this thing, right, to human beings being different, right? Obviously, I believe that human beings are different, and whatever background you come from, I think it's hard to argue otherwise, right? Because there is something different about human beings, right? And so I would argue you're not just responding to a prompt. Here's the difference, right? You might be trying to solve a problem, you might be trying to show an idea, but like even like a painting isn't always a prompt. Sometimes it's a picture or something somebody has in their head that they have thought of and they want to put into reality, right? That's the difference between AI. AI has not thought of something it wants to put in reality. It has been told to create something and then does a statistical analysis of what things it has a control of and what will most likely meet that request, right? And like to a certain degree, yes, okay, human beings kind of do this, right? We have something we want to try to do. We pull together everything we know. We have ideas, but there is something intangibly different about
I agree. I do want to state
like there is something
agree.
different than this, and this is probably what makes us uncomfortable about AI making things, is because we're not sure what happens when you remove that intangible humanness from the process. Does it devalue the thing, or does the thing no longer mean anything, right? Like, or is it no longer respectable, right? Like a poem, if you remove the inspiration of the writer, how is that any different than just somebody pulling together a bunch of sentences together to try to make a poem? And it might not be any different, but when is it okay versus not okay? See, I think this starts to, I don't know, we don't have an answer on the podcast for this question, I think, yet, because this is the thing we're wrestling through. I do think at one level, because we're uncomfortable, we're putting boundaries on AI that we wouldn't put on other things. But the thing that maybe twisted me around on this a little bit is that generate and create is not as clear of a divider as I think we want it to be. And I think it's the thing we place on AI so we feel more comfortable about what AI is giving us. But I think what makes us uncomfortable about AI is for the first time we've created something that's getting a little too close to home. It's getting a little too close to what we can do, right? Like when we made Clippy wasn't dropping Shakespeare poems. Clippy could barely tell us where to bold something in Microsoft Word. And we were like, oh, that's cute. Cute little thing we made. That's fun. And now when it's kind of like able to answer math better than we are, we're kind of like, okay, well, maybe that's fine. But then when it like makes an image that looks better than the hand-drawn craziness that we drew because we're not an artist, we're kind of like, hey, I'm feeling maybe a little more uncomfortable with this thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. I think it depends. It's very situational. It's not as clear cut right now of when to use it versus not. I do think it has to be situational in some cases.
Our call to action in this episode is literally to decide for yourself. We are wrestling.
We copped out.
We are wrestling with an oiled pig, right? Like it is not going to stay in place. It is slippery. It is going to get out of our hands. But what I do take away from this conversation is I think humanity has some hubris about AI. Like, oh, it's not us. You know, it's not going to be as good as us. It can't be as good as us. And I'm really wrestling with like, no, it can't be humanly.
No, it
cannot be humanly. I do not believe it can be like us in that way.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I am believing. I'm in the process of believing more and more that it can create like we can. I like we can. It's not going to create humanly work. It's not going to think like us. But the art, the poetry, the text.
I don't know. I'm becoming more convinced it can create like us at our worst. Have we been settling?
I don't know, dude. Have you ever seen me draw?
Well, no, okay. Like put aside the drawing, right? Like it's tough, right? Because this is why it's situational, right? Like if you're trying to be an artist. Am I okay with all your art being created by AI? Probably not, right? Like, if you're trying to sell art, okay, like, why should I buy your art when I could make it with ChatGPT if you're making it with ChatGPT? You know what I mean? Like, that's I struggle with this in education. Why should students pay for our courses if you're just going to generate it with AI? They could go find it out on ChatGPT. You know, what makes it different? But I wonder if we've been settling for less on the internet until recently. Well, not wondering. I know we have been. Just look at TikTok. But, like, we're settling. Have we been settling for slop? And it's making us uncomfortable.
Well, yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm gonna not necessarily open up a new one. I'm gonna just put this out there.
Okay.
You bite or not, okay? But before digital medium, all art was physical. Before screens, all art was physical. Drawn, painted, etc.
We also had fireplaces. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. and fire mugs for your fireplaces.
Yes, well, that's a new idea. That's inspired, clearly.
Right. When we introduced digital media, there it was and is this battle about whether or not digital art is as art-like as art is.
Yes, that's true.
I believe in that transition. I believe in that moment, it still comes back to the artist's inspiration and the artist's intent. Right? The artist is going to do something with that medium, whether it's physical or digital. The artist is what brings value to that art. What if that same inspiration and that same value is brought by an artist to an AI prompt? Can they communicate feeling, setting, environment, characters, movement, very, very artistic things that are in paintings, that are in digital media? Can they do that through a prompt? And would it be something that they could communicate a message through an AI generated image? Would that not be art? Because if that is not art, or if we would gatekeep that as saying that is not art, I think we gain our argument back for pushing back on digital art and digital medium, because it's still not something that we can see and hold and keep like you could a physical painting or a drawing or a ceramic pottery piece. Like these are things that people gatekeeped the digital medium from because it's not physical.
No, I understand, but it's not about it being. I'm only going to bite this far, right? It's not about it being physical or not. Now we're starting to question at the start what means created and owned versus not, right? Yeah. Like, and people, you're right, made the same argument about digital media because you're using tools now and you're using CG. You know, they talk about this,
and it doesn't exist. I think the thing with digital, it doesn't exist. That was a big issue. about digital
Yeah.
art.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure this is the same gatekeeping per se yet. You know what I mean? I don't.
That's fair.
Like,
That's fair. I'm wrestling with this.
And I'm wrestling with where the line is drawn, right? I'm not necessarily saying AI assisted things. I'm struggling with. It's like on the art side, right? Like, are you going to sit here and tell me, okay, you would be, if somebody just put in a prompt, AI generated a background or an art piece like you and I have generated things for learnings, like we're about to show here, and they gave it to you and said, I created this piece of art. That you would, and then somebody else came to you and said, I digitally drew this art in whatever program, and did this type of thing, came up with this idea. You're going to tell me they're the same thing.
But see, the bias is the issue there. If you blind tested me on 2 pieces of art, both vector illustrations, one was hand drawn digitally by an artist and one was generated by AI. But if you didn't tell me, you put them side by side, I promise you I would not be able to identify the AI piece.
Some of the AI generated art though, you know what I mean? Like,
I've also seen the good stuff. I'm just saying if an artist takes their time to make sure that an AI piece is what they want it to look like when they're done with it, they're not going to give out slop. They would retweak the prompt. They would fight with it. They would wrestle with it. They would go. No artist would accept the first thing out of AI if it looked like crap.
But can you fix some of the things we see in AI art just by prompting? Like, think about some of the things we've created for courses, right? Like the thing that put Biggie in the background of our for context, real quick. We generated a gymnasium for a course we were working on because it needed to be in the background, and it put a silhouette of Biggie on the basketball net. In case you're curious, I did not do that. But there's no way I could have prompted out that Biggie. I would have had to bring it into, in this case, Figma, and do what I did. But at that point, is it just AI generated anymore? There's human interaction. I'm reforming the AI art. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
I don't know that you couldn't not get it out with the prompt. I just did some prompting last week, and I got it to tweak the media and stuff in the environment I was working on by re-prompting and re-prompting and re-prompting. Like, I don't know that it's not. My point is, if you blind tested me, put 2 pieces of art in front of me, and I'm telling you, it's not. It doesn't look like crap. If it looks like crap, it looks like crap. But if you put 2 things in front of me, you didn't tell me which one was the AI generated content. I'm not going to decide based on whether it's AI or not. I'm going to decide on which one is beautiful, which one is challenging, which one make me feel something. Okay. My response is going to be, it's art. I'm looking at it in front of me, and they're both art. The second you tell me it's AI generated, my bias is through the roof, and I bet you I'm going to pick the vector illustration.
Okay.
Like done by a human.
Here's a new game that I think we should play. I think and then we'll go to what we're about to do. I think another episode of the High Tech Podcast. I think we bring on Chris, our artist friend who does VR. I think you should reach out to him, and he has to create 4 images, and I create those 4 images with AI. You know what I mean? And
we do a blind test.
We do a blind test. I think we test this. Okay, folks, that is a wrap on this episode. It's just a reminder. Hit us up on Twitter or YouTube or any of the other socials, Instagram, Threads, all those fun things, either at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. You can also email us at inbox@hightechpod.us and check out our episode pages on our website at hightechpod.us. So make sure to go check that out. All right, folks, that's a wrap on another week. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech. Cheers.
Cheers.
Buckle up, let's ride.